Sarah needed a change. Her tiny studio apartment felt suffocating. When she found a spacious, sun-drenched apartment in an old, charming building, she jumped at the opportunity. Little did she know this new chapter would plunge her into a chilling mystery. Moving day was chaotic but exciting. Neighbors greeted her with warm smiles, but their eyes held a flicker of something else. Pity, or was it warning? Later, an elderly lady living across the hall, Mrs. Henderson, spoke in hushed tones about the building's reputation. "Old Mr. Davis claims it's haunted," she whispered, clutching her shawl. "Says he hears things at night." Sarah brushed it off as an old man's ramblings. The first few weeks were uneventful. Sarah reveled in the spacious rooms and the sunlight streaming through the large windows. Her anxieties about the move faded. One night, however, a noise jolted her awake. It was a soft, rhythmic tapping coming from the walls. "Just the pipes," she mumbled, burying her head under the pillow. But deep down, a seed of unease had been planted. As days turned into weeks, the noises grew bolder. The tapping in the walls became more insistent, always starting precisely at 3 a.m. Sarah tried to ignore it, but the relentless sound chipped away at her nerves. One night it escalated. 3 sharp raps echoed from her front door. Her heart pounded in her chest. Gathering her courage, she flung open the door. The hallway was empty, illuminated by a single flickering light bulb. A shiver ran down her spine. Closing the door, she leaned against it, her breath shaky. "This is ridiculous," she muttered to herself, but her voice lacked conviction. The next day, Sarah questioned her neighbors. Mrs. Henderson pursed her lips, her eyes filled with knowing. "Told you, dear," she whispered. "It's restless spirits they are." Others shrugged, their faces carefully blank. Their silence spoke volumes, fear mixed with resignation. Determined to find a logical explanation, Sarah began researching the building's history. The local library became her sanctuary. Dust motes danced in the beams of sunlight filtering through the high windows as she pored over old newspapers and microfilms. Days turned into weeks. Her initial skepticism gave way to a growing sense of dread. She uncovered a tragic incident from decades past. A fire had ravaged the building, claiming the lives of several residents, including a young girl named Emily. A chill ran down her spine. Emily! The name echoed in the back of her mind as if she had always known it. The disturbances in her apartment intensified. Whispers seemed to emanate from the walls, too faint to decipher. Objects moved inexplicably. A book flew off the shelf, landing at her feet. Her fear was now edged with a strange curiosity. Who was Emily, and what did she want? One evening, as Sarah sat reading about the fire, a cold spot settled over her. The air grew heavy, making it difficult to breathe. Looking up, she saw a faint, shimmering figure taking shape near the window. It was a young girl, her face obscured by shadows. "Emily?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. The figure turned, and for a fleeting moment their eyes met. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. The girl's eyes held a depth of sadness that belied her age. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the figure vanished. Terror warred with a growing sense of empathy in Sarah's heart. She realized that what she was dealing with wasn't malicious. It was a lost soul seeking solace. Driven by a need to understand, she delved deeper into the building's past. Through her research, Sarah pieced together Emily's story. She discovered that Emily had been home alone on the night of the fire, trapped in her room. Her parents had perished trying to save her. The image of the young girl consumed by flames and fear haunted Sarah's dreams. One night, Sarah awoke to the sound of a child sobbing. It seemed to be coming from the wall, the same spot where the figure had appeared. She placed her hand against the cold plaster, her heart aching with a profound sadness. "Emily, I hear you," she whispered. The sobbing intensified, then abruptly stopped. A cold breeze swept through the room, rustling the curtains. When it subsided, Sarah felt a shift in the atmosphere. The oppressive heaviness had lifted, replaced by a sense of peace, albeit a melancholic one. That night, Sarah had a vivid dream. She saw Emily, her face illuminated by a soft light. The girl looked at her eyes filled with a pleading sadness. "Help me remember," she whispered, her voice like the tinkling of wind chimes. Sarah woke with a start, the dream lingering like a half-forgotten melody. She knew what she had to do. Emily didn't want to frighten, she wanted to be remembered. Sarah spent the next few days collecting photographs and newspaper clippings about the fire. She carefully arranged them in a scrapbook, along with a handwritten account of Emily's story, gleaned from her research. She wanted to give Emily a voice, to acknowledge her pain and her existence. On the anniversary of the fire, Sarah held a small memorial service in her apartment. She invited Mrs. Henderson, the only other resident who seemed to remember the tragedy. Together they lit candles and shared stories of the people who had perished. Sarah placed the scrapbook on a table, a testament to Emily's short life. As the candlelight flickered, Sarah felt a presence in the room. It wasn't frightening, but comforting, like a warm embrace. She knew Emily was there, listening. When they finished, Sarah stepped out onto her balcony, gazing at the city lights. A gentle breeze brushed against her face, carrying with it a sense of closure. The disturbances ceased, the knocking, the whispers, the cold spots, all gone. Sarah continued to live in the apartment, no longer afraid. She had found a sense of peace, knowing that she had helped a lost soul find solace. The experience had changed her. She was no longer the skeptical young woman who had moved in a year ago. She had learned that sometimes the most unsettling experiences can open our hearts to empathy and understanding, and that sometimes the greatest act of kindness is to simply listen to the whispers of the past.